So, thank you. What a treat to be here. I've given this talk, I think now 200 times across the world. This is the first time I've done it in a bar, though, the first time. We'll see how the evening goes from here, shall we? Ralph said about the noise. I don't mind, actually, if you interrupt me. And if you have a question, please just shout it out and get it off your chest. I ask you not to throw things at me, though, because whilst you're laughing, some of the topics I'm going to discuss, people can get quite interested and heated about. So if you have a question, ask it and don't throw beer. That's good. So thank you very much. It's great to be here. It really is. I'm going to talk about gender equality. I'm going to talk about gender equality in science. I'm going to talk about a little bit from our perspective at the University of York in Britain. I'm a chemist, as Ralph said, about some of the things that we've been doing for the last 20 years. It is 20 years worth of effort. And to share with you some of those things. And in particular, to answer this question here. Look, why is it taking so long? And let me tell you this. Out of these 200 talks I've given, and it is across the world, there is no place, nowhere on earth, at any time, at any point, that has achieved gender equality. Nowhere. Zero. I've been to China, I've been to Taiwan, I've been to America, I've been to Canada, I've even been to Switzerland, and nobody has solved the problem. In fact, I'm going to say this to you, which is quite important. It's probably the single largest unsolved human problem in the world. The single one. Because so many lives are lost because of gender inequality. And we all have our little roles to play in that when it comes to science. And so that's what I'm going to be talking about. It's a problem which is not solved. And so why is it not solved? And I've decided that I'm going to present this little talk in terms of what's stopping it. What's getting in the way of me and you solving the problem, making progress with it. And I'd like to present the resistances that I've had and that we've had over 20 years where people have said, no, stop. I don't want to do gender equality. And here are the resistances. The first resistance that people come up with, they say, there isn't a problem. They say, I've sat in meetings full of men, male professors, and I've said, we need more female professors. And my colleagues have turned around and say, well, there's no problem. Look around. There isn't a problem. And I'd like to say how you address that. The second resistance is this, and this is a hard one. It's a woman's problem. It's not my problem. It's a woman's problem. I'd like to discuss that as well, and to show you that it isn't a woman's problem. It's all our problems. But people say that. They say, I'm not going to do gender equality because it's a woman's problem. Third one, you may get this one. I have done all the training. I have read all the HR policies. I've listened to important people. I am fair. And I'd like to show you that you're not. And the people who say that usually are mistaken. This one here. Oh, well, yes, I can see it's a problem. Oh, yes, I can see it's not a woman's problem. Yes, I can see I'm not fair, but I don't care. Yeah? And the last one, which it depends which country I'm in when I'm speaking about this one. I did make a mistake. I spoke in the US and I called it the Trump effect, and my audience went cold on me, very cold, because it turns out that talking about politics in the US is not a great thing. But here in Europe, I think I'm safe. Ryan, I think I'm safe. The Trump effect, where people say this equality effort's all gone too far. I'm fed up of it. What about us men? We're disadvantaged too, yes? And I'd like to talk about that as a modern resistance to gender equality, something that has come up in the last 2 or 3 years, and that's why I call it the Trump effect. And by talking about those resistances, I hope to equip you to deal with them when they come up. They will come up. They will come up. I'm prepared to stand here and bet you all a beer, one beer, just one. I can't afford any more. That you will see any one of these, if not all of these resistances, as you progress gender equality. Okay, here we go. There isn't a problem. What is the answer to people who say there isn't a problem? And about 20% of people will just deny there's a problem. The answer is the data, right? The answer is the data, and I'm going to show you some data. The first data, I have to say, I put together this afternoon, and it rather shocked me. This is the percentage of women, of female academic staff, so female professors, in universities from, wait for it, 1960 to 2017. And we'll do a little bit of science here. I know you like a bit of science, yeah. Well, let's take the Arab world. And this is the percentage of women, female academics in 1983. I don't have the 60s data here. And you can see it was about 30%, went down a little bit, and then came up, and there it is in 2016. Yes? So there's the Arab world, and you notice there's been an increase in the number of female professors in universities. That's good. That's good. Yeah? Let's pick OECD members. Look at this one here. See this rise of women. By the way, that's 40% right there. Look at that. 40%, not 50. This is good old England. There we are. And you see there's this big growth of women in universities. Here's Sweden, the most progressive country in the world. Sweden. Notice Sweden isn't at 50-50. There's the United States. The United States went to sleep between 1960 and 1980. I don't know what happened there, but anyway. You see there's been a big rise, and the United States is almost at 50-50. That's really interesting. Really interesting. Yeah? Here's Saudi Arabia. Why did I pick Saudi Arabia? Because Saudi Arabia is seen to be perhaps the hardest country in the world, to industrialized country or rich country, to make gender equality efforts. But look at the statistics. There's been an enormous increase to now over 40% of academics are female. And that's interesting because you see this global feminization of academia. Here's Switzerland. Switzerland's really interesting. Out of all these, it has the worst statistics. This is the bit that surprised me. And I don't want to disappoint you. Switzerland is the only country on this, or set of countries on this, which has less than 40% female participation in universities. The only one. There was a big expansion from the 80s, went from a very low base there, and some of you may have been part of that, or even know that. And then in the 2000s, it started to slow down, in fact, go backwards slightly. So I'm going to say this to you, and forgive me, and this is where I don't want you to throw anything. I would say there is a problem. And I would say this problem does go by country, and I would say there's a particular problem here. And forgive me, I don't mean to come and upset whole nations. That's not my style. But it is on me to point this out. And if you in this talk, if you were on the way to this talk and someone was to tell you the man's going to show you that we have worse gender statistics than Saudi Arabia, would you have believed that person? We have worse, the Swiss has worse gender statistics than Saudi Arabia. That's a shock, isn't it? So there is a problem. There is a problem. You'll be familiar with these leaky pipeline plots. Look at this. This is from UK universities. These are the different grades, undergraduate student, all the way up to the dizzy heights of full professor. Yes? And you notice I plotted the female percentages, 2002, 2010, and the male percentages, 2002, 2010. And you see as people progress in academia, you lose and lose women until it's about 1 in 5 in 2010 professors in the UK are female. You would look at that plot and say, ooh, look. There's a little bit of progress. Can you see here? You see from here to here, there seems to be a small increase in the percentage of female professors in the UK. That's the highest grade. So the question is this. So there's a problem. Look, we're losing women. This is in the UK. This is bad. The question is, how quickly is this problem going away? How many times have you heard people say, the younger generation will sort it out? Oh, the young people, they're much fairer and kinder than the old people like Paul, right? They will sort it out. What's the rate of progress? Well, we know, and I'm going to show you. Here it is. This is the percentage of female professors. This is the highest grades. There's full professors in the UK across all subjects, not chemistry, all subjects. In 2010, it was just below 20%. 2018, that's the latest data I have, it's just below 25%. It's progressing. But at this rate of progression, when will we, that's the UK, achieve equality in universities at the highest position? Can anyone hazard a guess when that might be? I'm going to tell you. Here it is. The earliest we can expect gender is 2055. It is more likely to be 2150, which is certainly not in my lifetime, is not in your children's lifetime, and possibly not in your great-children's lifetime. And this goes to something which is well known in the social sciences, that the younger generation won't easily sort out the problem, and in fact the younger generation is just as biased as the old people in the place. And it's not fair to say to the younger generation, sort it out. It is going away slowly. In fact, it's really slowly, probably too slowly. Here's some other facts I like. This is some of my favorite plots here. This is chemistry. You see chemistry right here? And I plotted the data in a different way to show the difference in problem. So now we've got the percentage of females at researcher grade. The light blue bar is 2001-2, the dark blue bar is 2006-7. And you notice in 2001-2, we had 1 in, what's that? 1 in 25. This is 4%. 1 in 25 of all UK chemistry professors are women. 1 in 25. You could walk into many UK chemistry departments and they would be estrogen-free zones. Right? 1 in 25. But look, have we made progress? Well, no. Now it's 1 in 16. There are many UK chemistry departments that have no female academic staff, no female professors, full stop. Completely unforgivable. Where have all the women gone? Do we burn them? What happens? Where do the women go? How can chemistry as a subject survive this? And you notice chemistry, and actually science generally, in biological science, has two problems. One, we lose women, and secondly, we don't get them in the first place. And you say, well, okay, I understand. That's chemistry, though, isn't it? That's chemistry. Or maths or physics, right? They suffer. What about other subjects? What about female-dominated subjects? Here's nursing and midwifery. Yeah? There's a female. If you walk into in fact, I think you have a nursing department here at Basel. Yes, I noticed the data today. You walk into a nursing department at a university, you will find women. In fact, you'll find the department is mostly women, 80% women, right? But look at the data. Look at the data. Can you see? Even in female-dominated departments, you see a disadvantage to women for progression. Even in female-dominated departments. I have a question for you. Which female-dominated subject at the junior grades has the highest rate of drop-off? Does anyone know? Chemistry? Did someone say chemistry? Thank you for that, your support on that one. Psychology, thank you. No. Highest rate of drop-off, anyone know? I'll tell you. Biology, no. Good guess, though. Biology, no. It's clinical medicine. Clinical medicine, yeah. What has the best rate of drop-off? In other words, is flat across the subject. Okay, I'll tell you. Physics. There's someone at the back went like this. That's kind of weird, by the way. What was your guess? Well, yeah, it's great. Physics. Well, yeah, you should have said something. You'd have got a free. I was going to offer you a free beer, but no. There you go. You've lost it. But of course, physics has a low percentage of women in the first place, but the women that are there tend to be kept. Why am I telling you this? I'm telling you this because it's revealing the problem. That the problem, yes, there's a problem. The problem is there. It's absolutely there. The data is unequivocal. But the problem reveals itself in different ways, either barriers to progression or just women not coming into a particular subject. Physics and maths being one of them. So the data reveal this. I'm going to say one more thing. I've not seen a single plot in any university, at any point, at any time, in any country, which says the opposite. I've not seen a plot which says the same in business. I've not seen the same plot, a plot that shows the opposite in business. I've not seen a plot that shows the opposite in charities or commerce or government or any profession. In other words, all professions see barriers to progression to women. It is clear. So please, Please, when you hear people talking and say, no, there is no problem, show them the data. I'm always nervous about showing this slide, always. And I'm going to cheer you up in a little minute, by the way, so don't get too depressed on me. If a university or a large department, say like this, or institution, gets its HR department to ask the following question, have you been harassed at work? Have you been harassed at work? Then the typical reporting rates for harassment at work are about 3 to 4%. That's what will come back, and your HR department will say, there you are, director, you have low rates of harassment. And your director goes, good, and we'll sort out the ones that we have. If, however, the survey is done correctly, where people are asked a different question, have you been harassed as defined as follows, then the harassment rates in science, and this is sexual harassment, right, are 50%. 50. And I don't want to alarm you, but I need you to know the data. I need you to know the facts. That we work in an environment where the data are showing us that we have a problem. Go ahead.
So how is harassment defined?
Yeah. How's harassment defined? So harassment can be defined as this. I was going to, Ralph, please come with me. I'm glad you asked the question. Now, Ralph, you're walking down the corridor, yes? Yes, and you're a woman today, yes? Okay. You need to lose the beard, but let's go with it. Okay? This is harassment. It's known as bumping. Deliberate bumping into a woman to get close to her. Ask that as a harassment question, and people say, wait a minute, yeah, that happened to me. Thank you, Ralph, by the way. You were very good. So, let me make you aware. Oh, by the way, the other thing, harassment is underreported too. It's deliberate. Deliberate is the wrong word. It is actively underreported by people who are harassed. Let me make you aware that we as a community, and it's a kind of a global community, face problems. Aha, the next resistance. It's a woman's problem. And I can't tell you how much trouble I've got into with this. When I have said the following, look, it is not that women choose to have babies. It's not that women are less ambitious. It's not that women can't think about science. It's not that women think in different ways. People say, don't be stupid, Paul. Women can't read maps. Men can't multitask. Yes, remember those? Remember those? Let me test that with you. Let me test that notion with you. I'm going to start with this. This is the gender pay gap for different universities in the UK. So let me just, can you see this line here, down here like this? That's telling you that the University of York, there it is, my lovely, gorgeous institution, yes, has a gender pay gap of minus 16%. What's the gender pay gap? It's the average pay of women, subtract the average pay of men, divided by the average pay of men. In other words, men are paid more than women. Bad, bad. And each of these lines is a UK university. Here's my question for you. Where do you think the universities of Oxford and Cambridge are on this plot? So I'm going to reflect back to you what pretty much everyone in the audience is saying. They say they're down here, yeah? Yeah? Why'd you say that? Why'd you say that? Why do you, and by the way, when I ask this question, you're no different. You're no different at all. Everyone says, oh, Oxford and Cambridge are down here. They're bad. Why do you say that? Okay. I wouldn't have asked the question otherwise. Yes, I like it, yes. Have another beer. Why do you say that? Well, and you were immediate in your response, by the way. The answer is Oxford and Cambridge, actually, they're about here. They're not here. Yeah, they're about here. They're about where the University of York is. But it's interesting that you find some way of saying that those famous institutions have higher gender pay gaps. Why on earth would you assume that? By the way, before I get asked, what are these guys up here, where the gender pay gap is the other way, where women are paid more than men? They are small liberal arts colleges in London. That's where they are. Yeah, please.
If you said that there was more men professors, I mean,
Yeah.
professors are paid more than,
Yeah.
than women, and then, I mean, this can never look any,
Yeah.
as long as this is not 50-50, that cannot look good.
Yeah, so thank you for that. So the question is this: if there are more male professors, there's going to be a gender pay gap because men are paid, professors are paid more than other non-professors. That's your comment, is it? Yeah, of course it is. And there are many other factors too. Part-time working is another, which feeds into these data. I don't want to open a debate about pay data, but if gender equality was progression, you would expect these numbers to start to get towards zero, wouldn't you? You'd expect them to fall. The answer is they don't. The pay gap has remained the same for multiple years. And that's a different debate, and I'm happy to have that debate. Okay, this is what I wanted to say, though. This is Science 2015, good old journals to publish in, right? And it asked the following question. Which subjects do you think the most brilliant people work in? Which subjects? Right, and we're going to split this into two. We're going to take science, there's science, and there is arts and humanities. Well, I'm going to tell you the answer. People think that if you're a philosopher, so this is called field-specific ability belief, then you're brilliant, you're a genius, you're a clever person. For science, it is the mathematicians that we hold in some type of reverent space as being particularly brainy. And on the opposite side, when it comes to science, neuroscience does badly, molecular biology does badly, physics does well, and when it comes to arts and humanities, education does badly, psychology does badly, interestingly enough, and what else does well? Music composition, for some weird reason, does well. I don't get that one. That's weird. And get back to and physics does well. And you say, well, okay, and actually I'm getting a few people nodding in the audience saying, yeah, I think that's true. Look at the percentage of women in those fields. Look at the percentage of women in those fields. So here's philosophy, right? That has basically the lowest percentage of women in the field. There's education. It's got the highest percentage of women in the field. There's mathematics. It's got almost the lowest, not quite. There's neuroscience, molecular biology. It's got the highest. When I asked you the question, where do Oxford and Cambridge sit, you revealed one of these very interesting instincts that we have, which is we associate prestige and ability with being a man. And all the studies uncover this fracture in everybody's understanding. And this I talk about a lot, this we've worked on a lot at York, is the heart of the issue. And the question becomes this: am I? Are you? Is the world biased? And I should say, for scientists, that's hard to swallow. And if we are, how do we deal with it? And how does it make a difference to a working environment? So I've got a question for you. If you were to take these categories, ambition, ability in maths, confidence, psychological well-being, personality, cognitive forms, and self-esteem, if I was to ask you this question, in your heart of hearts, and I'm not going to ask you to reveal personally this, right? But in your heart of hearts, do you believe there are innate differences in these categories between men and women? Biological differences, right? Is the answer yes or no? Are women more ambitious? Are men more ambitious than women? Can women better multitask than men? Are men better at mathematics than women? And before you answer that, I should say there was a very good study done about 20 years ago which suggested that men were better at maths than women. Actually suggested it. They did a test. What is your instinctive sense on that? And I'm not going to ask you to reveal it. I'm just going to ask you to be honest with yourself. And you may say, well, there's no difference at all. When you do the experiment, and here it is, look, I think this is the best. If you do have time, it's worth getting hold of that. Turn to the social scientists and ask them to do the experiment and say, look, can you test that? Can you test that in people then what do they find? They find this. There isn't a difference. And you may have believed that in the first place, but there isn't. There isn't. But what things are vulnerable to outside influences. And let me share with you an experiment. There's a famous experiment. There's a group of boys and girls, they were about 13 or 14, doing mathematics in British schools, right? These children have been measured in their mathematics abilities right from the word go. And so there's a whole bunch of data to show that they were equally able, the boys and girls, in mathematics. Fine, you say, no problem. And then the experimenters did this. They held a test, a maths test. Yes, it's a happy day when you have a maths test, isn't it? No, okay, right? And let me show you what the scene was. So you can imagine they were walking into the examination hall. There was an invigilator there, and this invigilator had a case in front of them, and the case contained makeup, lipstick, mascara. Okay, I've run out of ideas there, but that type of thing. As the children walked in, they were shown the case of makeup. That's it, no more. No words were passed. No communication other than that. Makeup case was closed. Children did the test. This was repeated a couple of times. Well, you know what the punchline is, don't you? The punchline was that the girls underperformed in that test significantly compared to the boys. And the researchers concluded this, and it's something to be aware of, is environment matters. It doesn't matter what you think about innate differences here, because there are no innate differences, and if you've got those sensors, it's worth to challenge them. Yeah, because that's been shown to have no difference at all. But they are vulnerable to implications of femininity and masculinity, which then change the way people behave and the way that you think. And that means this. We all have a role day to day, week in, week out, month in, month out, to iron out those differences. Because this community right here, sitting in front of me, up there, down here, right? The way that women and men behave in that and performing that depends, wait for it, on the day-to-day interactions that we have. And this is where we come to unconscious bias. And you may have heard of this. I have to say, when we first started talking about unconscious bias 20 years ago, people say, what are you talking about? I have no idea. Now, unconscious bias, it has entered the notion. Yes, please, go ahead.
Was the experiment reversed?
Yes. A male thing. Yes, I'm trying to think of a male thing. Thomas the Tank Engine. No. What would be a male thing? A football, something like that. Yes. And you don't see the opposite effect. No. But thank you for your question. The question becomes this: are you unconsciously biased? Now, to answer this, and if you how deep does it go? How much can I mess with your brain to change you around? For this, I do have a little experiment I'm going to try, right? And I did this with some of my professors. This is the chemistry department 20 years ago, and they swore blind they weren't unconsciously biased until we did this. So let's hope it works. I need you to stare at the dot. Stare at the dot. And I need you to keep staring at it quite hard. Don't look at me. If you're looking at me, I know you're not doing it. Stare at the dot. And in a moment, I'm going to change the slide, and I need you to keep staring at that dot. I'm going to change the slide in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. And then let your eyes drift off the dot. Yes. Now, yes, it depends where you are in the audience. It may or may have not worked. So we'll try it again in a moment or two. But when I changed the slide over, you would have seen a blue sky and a green grass. Yes, some at the front, yeah. Blue sky and green grass, but it's a black and white slide, yeah. And this is known as eye color accommodation by the psychologists, is that your eye, when you have a counter color there, and I immediately swap it. You can do it again. Watch it, do it again. And I immediately swap it over, then your eye struggles to adjust. I'll tell you why in a second. Yeah. By the way, the little murmur that's coming around the room, this happens everywhere. I'm going to ask you this question. Was it stronger the second time round than the first time around? Yeah. I'll explain this effect in a second, too. Your eye struggles to accommodate the color, and because you hold color information at low resolution and black and white information at high resolution, if you want to know about this, by the way, get a cat and pull out its eye and open it. I mean, don't do it. I mean, just kind of figure it. Cats have got lots of rods in their eye, and they hold black and white information, but very little color information. Human beings are similar, except we've got a little bit more color information. So we hold the black and white framework, but then we fill it in with our brains. And here's the key phrase, because you expect the sky to be blue and the grass to be green, then you fill them in and make them grass and green. And I just help your eyes come along a bit. Let me tell you a story, and then we're going to do it again. Like I said, I've given this talk in many countries. One of them was Lithuania. Please don't ask me how I accepted that invitation, but I went to Lithuania. And I gave a talk to the collected presidents of the universities of Lithuania. I arrived the night before, stayed in some hotel. It wasn't great, but there you go. Turned up the following morning at 11 a.m. to give what I thought was my talk. To be presented with the local host, and he said, your talk is at 2 o'clock. Beforehand, we're going to have lunch and vodka. Lunch and vodka. I thought, okay, I'll do the lunch bit and maybe a little vodka. So I had the lunch, we had the vodka, and the presidents, it turns out, like their vodka. They like it a lot. A lot. And so when I started talking at 2 p.m., and by the way, this because I speak zero Lithuanian, and the president's not much English, I was being translated through a translator. And we got to this slide, and I went, bang, bang, what do the presidents see? And out it went in Lithuanian to the swaying presidents. And one president, and he was sitting right in the middle, just where you are, Ryan, bless you. He said this. He said, Paul, by the way, this came out in Lithuanian first. So I was watching it. It was coming out in Lithuanian. And I was thinking, okay, this is not good, because it was going on and on and on and on and on and on. And you could see the translator thinking, I don't want to translate this. No. So eventually the translator said to me, he said, the president of Cholet University sees the following. He says blue sky, green grass. He says sheep in the field down here. And soldiers pouring oil down on the soldiers of it. Yeah. And also red flags fluttering in the wind. Red flags. I said, that's imaginative. But I'm going to do it again with you. Here we go. Look at the dot. Blue sky, green grass, red flags. Some of you will have seen red flags. Some of you are nodding, yes. Some of you will have seen red flags. Why? Because I told you to expect it. I told you to expect it. And there's me messing with your brain. If you're told to behave in a particular way day in, day out, then you damn will do it. If you expect women to be demure and quiet and look after babies, then it will happen. If you expect men to behave in a particular way, then it will happen. Here's a statistic for you. Did you know the average height of chief executives of the top companies in the US? What's the index called there? The Wall Street Index, yeah? NASDAQ, well, any of those, right? I think it's the Wall Street, but we'll take any of those. Did you know the average height of those chief executives is greater than the average height of men in the US? Why is that then? Why is that? Well, you know why that is? Because we expect our chief executives to be tall. Male and tall. It doesn't matter if they've got a brain or not. The Trump effect. It doesn't matter if they've got a brain or not. But we expect them to be tall. And we make this same error. It doesn't matter how fair you think you are. We make this same error every day. And I'll explain something in a second, what your personal role in this is. I want to try one more illusion with you, just to show how much I can mess with your brain when it comes to expectations. And after a beer or two, it might actually work nicely. So here, can you see the cross there? You see the cross? And you can see the little purple things there, and they're extinguishing. You might see a little green after image. Can you see that? Now, I need you to stare hard at the cross. I mean, really hard, and do your best, and something strange might happen. Yeah. Stare really. It takes about 5 seconds. Yeah, some of you are nodding. I think that's happening. Some of you are nodding. Yes, it won't have happened to everyone because it's quite a hard illusion to pull off. But what you'll see is you'll stare at the cross right there, like that, and then after about 5 seconds, these will just disappear. They'll just vanish. They'll go. They'll just simply go. They'll go. Yeah, you see, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Maybe another beer. That'll help. Yeah. And this is when you walk into a room. Let's say someone walked into a room down here, and they walked in. The first thing you do is this. Watch. You scan the room. And you look for you're thinking, you don't know you're thinking this, but you're looking for the most important person in the room. Let's say it's Ralph. Yeah, Ralph, I'll make you the most important person in the room today. At that point, I think, okay, Ralph's the most important person in the room. I've got to pay him attention. And because you concentrate your attention so much on Ralph, you turn off, like this here, every other contribution in the room. Why do I show you these? I'm showing you that I can mess with your brain to this effect. Why do I show you this? If you're in a meeting, and I urge you to work with this fact, if you're in a meeting, and let's say it's a meeting of 15 men and women, shared, 7 or 8 of each, right? And the conversation goes like this, blah, 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 blah. A woman puts up her hand and says, I've got an idea. Let's all move to York. That idea is likely to be ignored. Why? Because they're concentrating on the most important person in the room. And there's some noise out here, Ralph, but I don't hear it. I don't hear it. I don't hear it. I don't hear it. And you can time it. I'm going to bet you another beer, 5 or 10 minutes. You can time it. If you're prepared to do this experiment, you get your watch out, 5 or 10 minutes, and you can watch it, and in that time, you'll see a man will put up his hand, or probably not put up his hand, will say, I've got an idea, louder voice, and will say, why don't we all move to York? At that point, the meeting turns to the man and says, what a good idea, man. Even though, and I don't want to explain the reasons behind this, even though the idea was had in the first place. Now, if you don't believe me, go away and read the social science literature, particularly a book called Why So Slow by Virginia Valiant, who talks about something called the accumulation of disadvantages in academia, not in the workplace, not in society, in academia. Because the woman is sitting there thinking, wait a minute, that was my idea. And then she has a choice, and the choice is this. The choice is either to bang the table, I'm going to come down, and say, hey, evil man, sorry, Ralph, get off, that was my idea, or think, it doesn't matter, I'll let it go. I'll keep quiet. Both ways, that woman, and it's usually women, well, it sometimes happens to men, not always, but usually women, acquires in the minds of the people around the table a small disadvantage. It is a small one, but nonetheless it's there. And what's the evidence? The evidence is this. After 7 years of that, and it's 7 years, that advantage accumulates to this point where that woman will receive less pay, less promotion opportunities, less chance of the best positions in the department, and will make decisions to leave science because of that. I'll say that last bit again. Will make decisions to leave science because of that. And now I hope I'm revealing in you all and it's our role to deal with this day-to-day disadvantage that accumulates, because my goodness me, that's where it is. And I'm going to say one thing to you here as well before I move on. I would say at York we have tackled that, and we've tackled it successfully. It has taken us 20 years, and there have been some bruises along the way, and people have found it really hard, but you can do it. Oh, if you want to know about, have you come across this? The Harvard Implicit Association says you can test your unconscious bias on the web. Go to Google, type in Harvard Implicit Association. You can do it whenever you want, and it times your responses to prompts. Yeah? It times it to measure your unconscious bias. So you'll get a prompt. It'll say something like scientist, and then you have to choose between uncle and aunt or mother and father. And it times how quickly you do that. Yeah? Now, if you, this is a worldwide test. So this is 2 million people have done this set of data here. And they measure whether you have a strong association of science with being a man or a strong association of science, a scientist being a woman. Notice the general bias. If people are presented with the word scientist, then they usually think of a white, middle-aged man, slightly fat. Ask me a question. Paul, after 20 years of gender equality, where do you come out on this test? Well, I'm asking myself that question, aren't I? I'll tell you, I come out every single time. I know how to cheat at this test. You do it to music. Yeah? I come out every single time there. There. And I stand in front of you and admit I am biased. I don't like it, I don't want it, but I have it. So I have to work with it and correct for it. We all carry something along those lines. If you're in the middle, by the way, I'd like to meet you and talk to you. Because I'd like to do some experiments on you, yes, to find out why. By the way, it is well known, again from the literature, I'm not making this up. This is not me, this is out of the literature. I'm going to say something else to you. Read the social science literature. Hug a social scientist. Be warm to them. Get close to them. Understand them. Read what they say about what these dynamics do to our professional lives. And they say this, you can't correct for a long time. So if I tell you, you're unconsciously biased, spend the next meeting trying to correct for that, you go, okay, Paul, I'll do that. How long do you think I can get you to correct for? How long do you think your little brains can correct for? 3 days? 15 minutes. You were really close. 15 minutes. You can constantly, 3 days. You can actively correct for 15, and then it all goes south. And if you're tired, you're stressed, or you're hungry, don't do it. If you're ever making decisions about people, never do it under these conditions. It's also known when people are presented with this notion of unconscious bias, and it's between me and you, they go through the following path. First of all, people deny it. They go, no, not me. Not me, pal. And then they go, well, maybe it's me, but I hate it. I'm going to push against it. And then they go, oh, God, oh, please, stop, please. Oh, Paul, go away, stop it, please. Yeah? And then finally they go, okay, let me work with it. That process takes 10 years. 10 years. It's actually quite a few of you are nodding at that, you know that. And here's one of the secrets of gender equality, is that you have to stick with it. You cannot bring in policies overnight and expect them to work there and then, because they will fail. 10 years. I'm just going to share a little story with you here, just to show you. I talked about this earlier today. When we have selection panel meetings, you can imagine the scene, can't you? We're all sitting around as professors, yeah? And we have all these kind of people applying for a job with their resumes, yeah? One of us is there not to watch the resumes, but it's to watch our colleagues, right, make decisions. And remember, the chemistry department at York is the leading department in the whole of the UK for gender equality. The leading one. Everyone goes, go to York. Yeah, go to York. And what we do, and I'm going to show you that we're not perfect. And so one of us, what we'll do is this is a candidate here. We'll record the number and type of positive comments that they get, and then record the number and type of negative comments they get. So negative. So that's one candidate. That's the second candidate. I should tell you right now that this candidate here is female. This candidate here is male. And we notice that female candidates get proportionately more negative comments than they do positive comments, whereas male candidates get more positive comments than they do negative comments. It splits down gender lines. Remember, this is a department where we really worked with unconscious bias. And let me tell you a story here. We were shortlisting for a candidate. This is for an assistant professor position. We had a bunch of resumes. First it was one of the early resumes came up, and it was a guy. This guy, late 20s, had something like 26 publications. 26 publications. Wow, right? And remember the discussion went as follows. Look at this guy. Look at this guy. 26 publications, right? Amazing record, right? And we went around the table, people were talking about exactly this. The chair of the panel picked up the CV and stuck it on the shortlisting pile, and we were all sitting there going, yes. 2 CVs later, 2, not 3, not 4, 2, there's a female candidate, right? There we are. There's the CV. She had 25 publications, about the same age, same quality. The discussion went as follows. And this, I'm quite emotional about this, actually, because it fills me up. The discussion went as follows. Wow, fantastic. Look at this CV. Brilliant. 25 publications. She must have done really well. Fantastic in her field, right? And the discussion went around like that. The chair picked up the CV, the resume, and was about to drop it on the shortlisting pile, and someone said this in the negative comments category. Oh, wait a minute. She must have had some help. Now, yeah, I know. The thing was, it wasn't that the comment was made bad enough. The thing was that people didn't realize the comment had been made, because unconscious bias was at play. And it took the observer, which happened to be me that day, oh boy, was I happy with this one, to stop the meeting and say, I need to repeat to you what you've just said. And if you think even that we're free of unconscious bias, we simply are not. And we now have to observe all, and I mean all of our shortlisting panels, where an academic, and it is an academic, does the unconscious bias observing. One other thing we've observed, by the way, and just to warn you about it, is that female candidates never get what we call sponsorship. Male candidates, someone will be sitting at the table and say, oh, I had an email about him. He's really good. His supervisor phoned me up. He's really good. We never got that for female candidates. And so we have to correct for it, right? I gave a talk in Norway. I'm completely fair. I've done all the training policy. I gave a talk in Norway. Story here. By the way, I need to keep it on time. Just tell me when I'm going over time, because I tell my stories and it's not good. I gave a talk in Norway. It's a quantum chemistry conference. So I do a bit of quantum chemistry on the side. I got invited to a quantum chemistry conference, and I got this email saying, oh, come and give a talk at a quantum chemistry conference. And I replied, I said, yes, brilliant. And then the email came back. She said, but I want you to talk about gender equality, not about quantum chemistry. I said, okay. And she said, it's going to be the star act at the end of the day, right? Last talk of the conference. I'm going to get you up. You're going to talk about gender equality. And I thought, okay, right. So the conference, lots of quantum chemistry. You know, it's a happy day, that. And as normal with these conferences, they go on a little bit. It came to me, and my host said, she said, okay, Paul's going to not talk about angular overlap model or integrals. He's going to talk about gender equality. And you should have seen the audience go, oh, God. Oh, please, Paul. Anyway, they sat there. They were polite. You know, my Norwegian colleagues are very polite. So I started talking, giving something similar to this talk, right? And I remembered this, and this is an insight. There's a guy sitting just where you are, just right there, and throughout my talk, he was going like this, no. And whatever the Norwegian for shit is, that, no. Yeah. And I was talking, and it was going badly. It was going badly. He really didn't like what I was saying. No, that's fine. Right? Now, because I tell my stories and I go on a little bit too long, as I'm doing on tonight, and I was the last talk of the day, as I was talking, the people who were taking the people home started to arrive at the back, right? They were lining up at the back. Just put that in your mind. I came to the end of my talk. There was lukewarm applause. And my host said, are there any? And even before the word question came out of her mouth, the hand was up. And it went as follows. He said, how dare you come to Norway, the most equal of countries? We'll come back to that. Yeah, and tell me, he was pointing at me, I am not fair. And he said this, every single decision I've made in my life is fair. It's based on merit and nothing else. And I said, well, okay, yeah, I understand that. Maybe, but the evidence would suggest, but no, he was not having it. He was not having it. He was absolutely determined. So this didn't end well. However, unbeknown to him, his wife had arrived at the back to pick him up. And she heard this. I laugh now, I didn't laugh then. She's at the back, she heard this. And now the rest of the story was related. Of course, I wasn't here for the rest of the story. The rest of the story went like this. They were driving home, I don't know who was driving, but I think he was still pretty steamed up about me. That stupid Englishman from York, how dare he? At this point, she turned to him and said the following, "I'm sorry, Per," that's his name. "I'm sorry to tell you, but you're the most biased man I know. And you're not fair, and don't believe you're fair, because I've had to live with that unfairness for our marriage." And sorry, I'm quite emotional about this, because it took that moment for him to realize. And to be fair to him, and I have to give him some credit for this, he then contacted me afterwards and said this, "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry because I didn't realize what the depth of things you were saying." And so here's my challenge to you. You as scientists, you as fair-minded, quantity-driven, data-minded, scientifically brained people, are you fair? Here are some words taken from, I wish I could publish in the journal Sex Roles, but that's a different matter. You and me, Tom, what are we doing? Go with this one. Ward and Walton, Sex Roles, 2019. And we'll be famous. If you take the references, the letters of recommendation written for people applying for track tenure positions, where they've been normalized for the quality of the candidates, and you do a word cloud on them. You've seen these word clouds? Seen them? You can take your document, take your latest paper and type it, and it'll come up with these word clouds telling you what the most popular word is in there, right? So here are the male-associated adjectives used to describe candidates for male positions. Fabulous, aptitude, wonderful, extraordinary, exceptional, remarkable, terrific, genius, unmatched, intelligent, supreme, ability, skill, brilliant, magnificent, brain, amazing, talented. Same ability of woman, same damn ability of woman, right? Same letters of recommendation, and the adjectives used. Look at them. Meticulous, conscientious, hardworking, dependable, citizen, communicative, blah, 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 blah. Who would you appoint? Now you say, "Oh, Paul, come on, that's obvious, and we can all correct." I don't do that. I have to tell you a story. When I saw this piece here and read it, I thought, I don't do that. So I took all my references, I stuck them into, is it called Word Doodle? Yeah? And I read the word clouds that came out, and I don't mind admitting to you that I cried. Because I did exactly the same. And I've got a challenge for you. The next time you receive a bunch of recommendation letters, bung them through Word Doodle. Next time you write a recommendation letter, bung it through Word Doodle and see the words that you use to describe men and women.
Do you see differences when it's a woman writing about a woman?
No. So the gender of the person making the recommendation has no effect on the words that are used. And it leads me to this statement. I get into trouble for this statement, but I'll make it because I'm amongst friends and we're drinking beer. Women are just as prejudiced as men are when it comes to these issues. RateMyProfessor.com. Are you aware of this site? This is a US-based site where if you're a student in a US university, you can type in anything you like about your professor's teaching ability, anything at all. Yeah? Professor Walton, he's rubbish. Professor Ward, he's brilliant. Yes? And you can get a score out of this. Now, this is not somewhere to visit if you're a professor. No, it's not. No, you get some bad comments on there. My favorite was, Professor Walton knows what he's talking about, comma, but the rest of us don't. That was my worst comment ever. But this site has an advantage, and the advantage is this, is there are millions upon millions upon millions of students have visited this site and rated their professors, rated them, yeah, for their teaching ability. And you can't read this. And so RateMyProfessor.com gave them a score for the comments. This is 0, this is bad, this is 100, this is good. These are the average scores of female professors given by their students. Yes, what you're seeing is true. Here are the average scores given by for male professors by their students. And by the way, before you ask the question, it doesn't matter if the person providing the evidence was male or female. In every single subject, let's pick one. Here's criminal justice. Where's chemistry? Chemistry's there, look. Our students grade our female professors' teaching ability way less than that of men. So you're a female teacher, the students are likely to say something like this. Her teaching was good, but what she was wearing was bad. It's true. If you're a guy, he was funny. If you're a woman, oh, she didn't concentrate. If a guy turns up and gives a bad teaching performance, the comments that came back were, oh, he's unlucky. He must have had a bad day. It was raining outside. Yes? Notice the phrase unlucky. If a woman turns up and gives a bad teaching performance, she is shit. I'm sorry to sound so blunt, but those are the types of comments you get. These type of data are used directly in promotions because we ask our students for feedback on quality of teaching. We didn't used to filter them. We do filter them now. But how is that fair? How is that fair? I'll say it again. How is that fair? If you were presented with these data of teaching abilities of students, and you had to promote somebody from assistant professor to associate professor to assistant professor, sorry, the other way, assistant professor to associate professor, do you correct? No. It's not fair. It's not fair. I'm almost finished. Then people say this, well, I can see it's not fair, I can see there's a problem, but why should I care? Why should we care, particularly here in Switzerland, about this? What difference does it make to me in my life? And 4 years ago, I couldn't answer that question for you. I couldn't answer it. But since then, it's really interesting. There's been a whole bunch of work done. And I'm going to draw now for some journals. Nature 2018, happy day when you publish there. Not that I've done that. And the title of and there's many more now. The title of the work was this, The Power of Diversity. What is this? What is this power of diversity? It's this. And you need to go and look up this archive reference, but it reflects many others. You can take the inputs of a team to a scientific research project and index them for their ethnic diversity, their age diversity, their gender diversity, and their affiliation diversity. In other words, you can take publications and you can figure out how diverse the team is for that particular publication, right? You can work it out. You can then work out how well, under our normal measurements of metrics, those papers have performed in the big, wide, ugly, horrible world of science. Yes? You can go away and measure the things that universities and perhaps even you will go by and say, this is the mark of quality. Huh. Look. If you want to publish a paper which has a high citation count or does well in citations, you find that that is strongly correlated with working in ethnically diverse teams. I'm looking at your faces. Age diverse teams, gender diverse teams, and your previous university. Let me put this another way around. There is now strong evidence, and there's no counter-evidence at all to this, that if you're prepared to work in different ways, which embraces diversity and works through all these problems we've talked about, you will do better science. You will do better science. And I have to say, this is the main reason we did it way back. I'm going to go back here. There's another paper here, PNAS 2017, and the title of which, Gender Diversity Leads to Better Science. Now, these are serious studies. These are not little studies out there, right? These are things that if you embrace as an institution, goodness me, as a country, then that leads to better scientific output. You might wonder why on the first slide I showed this massive feminization of higher education. And the reason is that people realize this now. Yeah, other countries can't afford to fall behind. So they're increasing the diversity of their universities. So it is a problem. If you sit there and think, well, no, I'm really not bothered, it's not my problem, boy oh boy is it a problem, it's a front and center problem for what we do. The Trump effect. Actually, this is the American slide, you can tell, because it was the Trump effect. I haven't changed it. The most recent resistance is this. It's very interesting. Oh, men have rights too. Men get prostate cancer, women don't. Here's one that came out of the UK that didn't make me smile, but made me smile, if that makes sense. Men don't access mental health services as much as women do. I don't know if that's true in Switzerland too. And so the resistance that came back was that, wait a minute, it's unfair on men because the mental health system in the UK is designed for women. Right? And I'm sitting there thinking, oh, God, please. Yeah. Why did I say, oh, God, please? Because, yes, you can take little bits of data and show in narrow situations that the opposite effect to gender inequality is in operation. And access to mental health services is true. Getting prostate cancer is certainly true. I've not met a woman yet who's got a prostate. Be aware of these arguments, because these arguments are powerful for the people who don't want gender equality to happen. They're powerful. Because people think, oh, wait a minute, no. But what they do, of course, is they ignore the massive breadth of gender inequality which exists in wherever we are. And it's called, I'm just going to equip it, it's called an argument from adverse consequences mistake. This is where I did have to talk to a philosopher who happened to be male, there you go. And he said this, he said, look, Paul, you get these people who will deny the truth, essentially, by picking some counterexample and extrapolating it right across the whole argument. And he says it's a mistake. He actually used the word fallacy. And he says this is the error of concluding that an idea, that's gender inequality, is erroneous merely because there are occasional negative real-world outcomes. And I give you that, I simply give you that as something to bring forward when you see it. Because you'll see it. All right, last slide, last couple of slides. Can you do it? So 20 years ago, we started on a journey like this, and we said the following: we're going to improve gender equality in the department. I don't care what people think. We know it's the right, at the time it was the right thing to do, from here, right? Not so much from here, but from here. It turned out to be in here, it turned out to be a good thing to do. It's 20 years, though. What have been the effects? Oh, I'll come back to that one. So, let's get this right. So in 2000, actually, I'm going to tell you a little story. Just ignore these data for a second. In 1993, I walked into the department as a brand new assistant professor, yes? Those days, I was less wrinkled, less grey, happy, wanted to go to work, all of this. Got there. Tell me, and we had about 35 members of academic staff. Tell me how many women we had in there. Two, right? 2 women out of 35, yeah? After 1 year, both those women had left. So we had 0. It's probably because of me. And I walked into a department which was free of female professors. It was a disgrace. In 2000, our statistics had improved a little bit. We had, this is a percentage, so this is about 4 or 5 female lecturers. I think we had 1 senior lecturer and 1 female professor. Yeah? That's in 2000. That's 7 years later. 16 years later, so this is the 20-year effort, look at the numbers now. These are the percentage of women in each of the grades. We still struggle at the top grade, still struggle there, but you see they've improved significantly. So the average percentage of female academics is about 40%, and we still need to work with this here. Let me tell you about Okinawa. It's not just York. Okinawa, which is, I had to look it up, it's right there, Sea of Japan. In 2012, they opened up a brand new Institute of Science, brand new, right? Incredibly, when they opened this up, and if you're opening up a new institute or a new building here, what they did was this, is yes, we want to do the best science, we want to address the best people, but we must have diversity in our staff. They made it a thing. And so they didn't appoint a whole bunch of white, middle-aged academics, males. They deliberately went out there to do the opposite. It's the only place in the world I know that has done that. The only place. They did the experiment for you. 2012, what did they find? So later, now it's got 60 faculty members, recruited from all over the place except Antarctica. I'm quite pleased about that. These are the metrics, right? These are the metrics. You can measure whichever you want there, but by any measure, it is a success. They've done the experiment. They've shown this, that you can fully embrace diversity, as I think we have, and actually it leads to research quality, not the opposite, as most people would tell you. Last slide. I will buy a beer for anyone who tells me who this is here. No, it's not Tom Ward. I'm sorry. No, thank you though. Good guess. Right country. Lavoisier. Okay, but you were a little bit slow. Did you get Lavoisier? Well, you should have shouted out. You got a free beer, but the guy there gets a free beer. Tom. It's Lavoisier. It's Antoine Lavoisier. It's a painting by David. It's in the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York. It's this enormous great thing. It would fill that whole wall there. It's a beautiful painting. David was a sublime painter. Look at the glassware down here. I think David was the best ever painter of glassware that ever lived. Yeah. Lavoisier, for those of you perhaps unfamiliar with this, he's the father of chemistry, the parent of chemistry. Yeah, he brought chemistry into being. He's the reverend God of chemistry. And if you look at all pictures of Lavoisier, all of them except this one, you find Lavoisier like this. He's the center of the picture. He's the star act. He's the show. Look at the picture by David. Who's in the center? Marie Lavoisier, his wife. What is Antoine Lavoisier saying to Marie in this picture? He's saying, tell me what to do next, please. Tell me what to do next, because I don't know. And look at this. This is the killer. Look at Marie Lavoisier's arm. Can you see this here? Here we go. You see that? And watch what David's done. He did. See the fold of the cloth? All the way down to the equipment. This was the late 18th century, of course, and there's no way on earth that Marie Lavoisier could be associated with the scientific discoveries that were ascribed to Antoine Lavoisier's name. No way. She'd have probably lost her head for that, actually. She did, I think, later on. But there's mounted evidence to show that Marie Lavoisier actually was the parent of chemistry. She's been written out of history. And David, the painter, tried to paint it back in the most subtle, gentle, but persuasive of ways. And I'm going to complete the story with this. I did spot this painting. I thought, ooh. I then went to the Paris, the French Academy, and said, could I see Lavoisier's letters, please? I'd like to read them to see what Marie's role was. That request has been refused. I don't know why, but I suspect that indeed it will reveal that Marie was the parent of chemistry, and that inequality then was so rife that she was completely written out. Yeah? And we are, 300 years later, 250 years later, we still got not quite the same problem, but almost the same problem. In other words, we have work to do. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Paul, for this fascinating and most challenging talk. You certainly found your audience today, because what you talked about is an issue to each and every one of us here. So now you all, and including myself, we all have been addressed here. What kind of consequences maybe do we have after this talk? Maybe questions or comments. So Alex is there with a microphone. Please raise your hand, exactly, and so we'll go on.
Hello. So,
Hi.
over here. So, don't misunderstand my comment. I don't want to put myself on this denial side of sexism. But I think one point that you are entirely missed in your presentation was, okay, maybe I pick this up. So let's say you are totally unbiased, and you get an application from, I don't know what your example were, like two people that are end of their 20s, and they both have 25 publications. This is your standard, how you measure their previous success or whatever. And you're totally unbiased, and you have to decide, and one is a woman and one is a man. And you're super unbiased, and you want the best for, well, in this case, academia, but could also be your company, whatever. I think it's more pronounced in there. So what would you do? You would pick the man. And I tell you why. Because there's a risk, and that's based on biology, that the woman gets pregnant, and that's also reflected in laws. So if the woman gets pregnant, there's a risk she gets pregnant. There will be a maternity leave. She's protected by law. So now maybe there's also the possibility she doesn't get pregnant once, or she gets pregnant twice or 3 times. So I mean, this is also a big problem, and I mean, this is totally rational. I mean,
Question, please.
Sorry.
The question.
So, okay. I mean, what is the reason you do not put this part into your whole presentation, which I think is a very, very important part, because I think it's...
Okay, thank you, thank you. I guess you heard the question, and you may have seen the reaction in the audience. And the question is, why on earth would a business or a university pick a woman if she's going to go away and get pregnant, and we have to pay for that? That's been the business, right? I'm not sure if you heard what I said, but if you run a monocultural business, the evidence is that business will not do as well. That's the evidence. So you can work against the evidence, that's absolutely fine, but that is the evidence. Show me the counter-evidence, and I'd be interested. Thank you.
There.
Thank you. Very, very interesting and also quite entertaining talk. I'll try to keep this short. So at the beginning, you started out showing numbers about gender equality in different academic positions, right? So in most countries, women are like 30 to 40%, right? Or maybe a little above 40%. And you said, okay, this shows, well, yeah, actually more like the one before, but also this one. You said, well, this shows that we have a problem, obviously. And I would claim the number by itself isn't a problem. In the same way as like, if we had 10% of brown-eyed people in academic staff, it wouldn't be a problem by itself. The problem is either the causes or the consequences of it, right? So you would, I mean, there is it's quite likely that one important cause is implicit bias, right? But I think we still need to show this correlation. And then, as you showed, one consequence is also, well, I mean, diversity and gender helps science get on better, right? But then I think when we defend gender equality, we here also bring an argument that actually defeats this argument about gender, about diversity being good for science, which is that you show that there aren't innate differences between genders, but then, I mean, if there aren't innate differences in personality, right, then you still need to explain, like, okay, how is it that gender diversity actually helps science if there aren't any relevant innate differences in personality?
Yeah, okay. I think it's a really interesting question, and not one that the psychologists have fully worked out yet, is why, if there aren't innate differences, why does increasing gender diversity lead to more diversity? And the answer is that there may not be innate differences, but there will be differences because people, men and women, respond differently to the cultural pressures that are put upon them. And that alone will give some diversity of difference. And I don't know this, and it's a fair question, it's probably deeper than that. There's probably some further dynamic in operation which, when you have a mixed scenario, say, which opens up thinking which is there despite the fact there are no innate differences. And I'm sorry I can't tell you, I don't know what it is. It's beyond the wit of most psychologists. But the data are incontrovertible in that sense, is the result is indeed more diverse thinking. But thank you for your question. It's a very fair one. Ryan's got a question here, and then there's a couple at the back. Yeah. Oh.
Paul, thank you for your talk. I have a direct question on your first remark, and the question would be, why shouldn't it be a problem when you get three or four kids? Why shouldn't it be a problem for the organization that hired you?
Alex in the back. Alex in the back, the lady in red. Okay.
I think maybe our colleague can respond. Yes, thank you.
So, first of all, I want to say, maybe you get me wrong. I'm not saying this is how the world should be, or this is what I think this is what I would like to be. But I say it's a reality, that women face. That's, I would say, also one reason also why women get paid less. And why should it be a problem? Well, if you get 3 kids and you work, okay, academia, I mean, I would say in a company it's more pronounced, but okay. So you work, you cannot work for a certain time. You're protected for this, so the company will not fire you or anything. So they lose your workforce. That's pretty clear, right? And so if you do economic calculations, you would say.
But why should they lose your workforce when you get children? Because you don't quit work. Why? Because we are in Switzerland. It's politics. But you have children that.
Sorry, I don't get the point.
If you become a father, why should the working staff lose your workforce?
Sorry.
I think
Yeah, well, yes, this is the solution, but this is not how in most countries. I actually don't know really how it is in Switzerland, but this is not how it works in most countries, actually, right? Well,
okay.
this is where I wanted to go with this question.
Okay.
I don't want to interrupt
right?
it, but we have so many
Because
questions.
I think
so
there's a
get
real
together
reason that is
during
reflected
dinner
in laws that leads to sexism.
and have fun.
And
the lady
it's
in
not
the,
only
in the
that
back.
people think like this, it's actually also economical.
Okay, thank you.
In
Yes.
the back.
Thank you.
Hi, thank you for the talk. I have a question. What do you think about female quota systems?
I'm sorry, female.
What do you think about quota systems, about a quote
Oh, quota.
that you would have to...
Yes,
And I
quota.
don't mean it to actually directly improve the quote,
Yeah.
but maybe in order to force male leaders for mentoring programs and stuff like that?
Yeah, okay. Thank you for your question. The question was, what do I think about quota systems? And let me just define quota. That is where you have to have a certain percentage of women at particular grades. That's one form of quota. And so you have to promote people or appoint people to achieve that percentage. And the other quota, I think, is the one where you have, let me call them women-centered efforts or women-only mentoring. Is that what you meant? Is something like that? Okay, thank you. All right, so what do I think? I think the evidence behind quotas is mixed. In some cases, quotas do break into very difficult systems and cause them to start to begin gender equality. In other cases, it's about 50-50. Quotas fail because they create resentment. And that resentment then lingers and stops an organization progressing. So to apply quotas, one has to think very carefully. And I would even add this, that if you've got to the point where you're applying quotas, then basically the system is very bad, and you might want to think of something completely different. And if you've not tried all the other things I talked about before that, then I would try that. On to your second part of your question, what about women-only efforts? I'm all for it. And some people say this, they say, well, Paul, how can you have women-only efforts when you try to improve gender equality? And the answer is this, is that women face a debt of disadvantage in society. Yes? It's like running a race. Let's say Ralph and I were running a race, right? I'll be the woman this time, Ralph, okay? And this is life in front of us. Off you go, slowly, because I can't. There we go, right? And now we stop. We both reach the age of 30. Stay there, Ralph. No. You're trying to get younger. Stay there. And we both apply for the same job, right? We're going to apply for running the city here, right? Look at Ralph's CV. It's more than mine. Can you see that? It's more than mine. Because as a woman, I've generally had to face disadvantages in society, not being offered the right position, had to stay at home with the kids, all of that. And therefore, there is a gap. There is a gap. And so there are things to address the debt of disadvantage, not the immediate assessment, but the debt of disadvantage, which should be women only. And I'm sorry to say that, sometimes that's hard to say, but those should be there. So mentoring programs, yes. Gender-specific groups, yes.
Okay, we got time for 1, 2, 3 more questions. Try to be brief with your question. And then Alex.
Paul, thank you for amazing talk. And
thank you.
I have a very strange question, but still. actually, what can we do with the pressure from the society, which put actually the roles of man and woman?
Yeah.
And it's difficult to resist. And I can imagine that there is no common recipe how to resist. You can educate people from the childhood, but still it wouldn't help. Because you cannot just erase memory of some adult members of society.
Yeah.
I know that there is no common recipe, but have you ever think about like possibilities how to improve that situation, not only in science, but only like just in life?
Yeah, thank you.
Thank
so
you.
it's an excellent question, and let me rephrase it for you. We, as a scientific body, live within society. That society defines the way that many of us operate. I was interested to hear today that Swiss schools close at lunchtime. Yes, so presumably the children have to come home and be fed and then go back to school. That's the only country in the world I know does that. That brings the societal pressure on women and men. And so how do you change that? Well, I'm not offering a solution to that. I'm sorry. I don't have one. I do recognize it, though. And actually, now that you recognize it, it is beholden on you to know that you're working in society which is disadvantageous to women, and that your operations, the way you do science, the way you do about work, should be done in that acknowledgement. And I'm going to add something else to it, and it's this. Look at you all. Look at you all, right? This group of people, and many similar ones around the world, we are the engines of social change. Universities. Universities, this is where it happens. This is where society does start to change. And it may be a grand call from me, but if it doesn't start here amongst us, where is it going to start? Yes, I'm going to say, we have a moral responsibility to address this. We have so as a group of people, we have a duty to the context to try and change it, and we start with ourselves. Let me just encourage you slightly, though. That was our attitude in the chemistry department at York, right? We've not solved the fact that my grandmother thinks I'm a loony for gender equality. My mother thinks that my wife should stay at home and cook all the time, and it's true, yes. That my daughter is very strongly for equality. My son hates what I do about it, yes. That's quite hard for me to say, right, because of societal pressures. But all the things that we've done within the department have worked. And so I'm laying out the challenge in front of you is despite what society does and the pressures it brings to women in particular, you can work with it. And I can give you details on that if you like.
This
Ryan.
gentleman and then over there.
Ryan.
Hey, Paul. So there's certain states, I'm an American, so there's certain states that actually have transparency when it comes down to pay among universities and government employees. Is there any progression towards equality over time in those states, or are they just as bad as the other? And what are your thoughts? Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Yeah, okay, so I think the question is, if you publish pay data, and in particular publish the pay gap, does that have an influence on closing the pay gap? And so there are not many experiments done. I'm not sure I would pick the states in the US as the best experiment. But where that's been done elsewhere, and actually the UK is an example, then you do start to see a narrowing of the pay gap. So the US I don't know about, so I can't comment on it. Just as a general principle, any time that pay is hidden, men are at an advantage. There's Tom, and there was one down here.
There?
There's one at the back. Sorry, I know you have to be very... Get you next, yeah. Get you next, yeah.
Hi, thanks for your talk. I was wondering, just because you touched upon it, and it's a very difficult topic. So sexual harassment is obviously a power game. How can we address it?
Okay, so I don't have a... First of all is to talk about it. The second is to make sure that the leaders in institutions make it a thing. What do I say? Is they say, come and talk to me as the director or the leader of the institution. I want to hear personally about that. That's very effective because people then get scared that the boss is going to get to hear what they've been up to and they stop it. Yeah. The other thing I would suggest is this, is to do a cultural survey. So you get lots of surveys done by HR departments, and they ask questions, and the questions are a bit narrow. If you ask for a professional cultural survey to be done on harassment, then that will reveal, if it's there, and I don't suspect it is, by the way, it will reveal the true harassment rates. And those two things alone will start to make some difference. And then I'll say one more thing. Everything I've said today, everything I've said about gender equality, all the things that you think you can go away and do, if there's sexual harassment in the place, they all fail. So in other words, you have to deal with harassment issues. On here.
Just one small question to this slide here. Like, what did the Russian Federation do different to all others? I mean, they seem to be stable, and all others not. And Russia is not really known for quality and stuff.
Yeah, so there are two reasons why you see some states, and the second world countries or the ex-communist countries or communist countries doing very well. And that's because they had equal employment law way back and brought in system of equal employment. The second reason is in those countries, and there's one or two others outside communist countries, academia is a low-paid profession. And so women end up in that profession, unfortunately. I walked in, I'll tell you a story here while we're there. I was invited to give a talk to the Thailand Chemical Society, where every year they bring all their PhD students together in one single place. And they invite an international speaker, and this was about science. And I walked into this lecture theatre, it was quite a bit bigger than this, and all I could see pretty much were women, right across the hall. And I turned to my host and said, wow! I said, look at that, I've never seen so many female chemistry PhD students in one place. He said, oh, Paul, he said, it's easy. Chemistry is a shit profession in Thailand. If you want to earn money, you go to law or medicine. So that was an unfortunate. So some countries you do see outliers because of those reasons. Any ex-China, the statistics are equally as good. Here, this one.
Okay. Maybe the last two questions. This lady over here, and then we take a last question after you.
Thank you. First of all, thank you for your talk. I read an article in Nature a couple of years ago which talked about that in order to change a system, you first have to have gone through the system and have to have been successful in that system. Obviously, that applies to you as well, right? You are a white male professor. You've also benefited from this bias.
Yep.
Do you think it helps you now as well in promoting gender equality that you are a man?
Yeah, thank you. Yes, it does. And I'm ashamed to say it. I'm ridiculously celebrated in the gender equality world. I feel ashamed by it. Why? Because I'm a guy. Yeah. And I've thought about this a lot. You know, why should I do this when everyone's saying, oh, wonderful international star, things like that, and, you know, it's very nice. But I sit there thinking, this is not fair because of all the people who've worked so hard on gender equality and not got the recognition. But I balance it with this, and that is, if I can stand up in front of you as a white middle-aged man and get you to think in different ways, and then we can go away and have a discussion that we wouldn't have otherwise, then it's worth it. And so, yes, I'm taking advantage of it, and yes, it gives me a headache, but I think, and I hope you would agree, that we should make use of it. Thank you.
Okay, last question over there, and then we will go on.
I'm ready for a beer. Are you ready for a beer? I'm ready for a beer.
It kind of goes in the same line. So you as a white male professor. So what you do here is super good, and I think this talk should be done like more frequently. But don't you think it could be better if it was a woman, the one that was there giving this talk to us?
I think it would be great. But I think it'd be a different dynamic.
And why is it not? If you think it could be better, why is it not the case? Why didn't you tell a female professor to come here and give us a talk about gender inequality?
Because we're still in the phase of expectation. We're still in the age of expectations of men and female roles. So if I was a woman standing here and I talked about what I talked about, that you may well be interested, but some of you would think, well, she would say that because she's a woman.
But then it's falling in the same mistake. So you're a man, and then we take you seriously because you're a man.
Yeah, I know.
We believe you because you're a man.
I know. I'm not saying the mistakes go away. I'm saying that's what would happen. And so... Yes, so women, so women would be accused of complaining. Yeah, it's a disgrace. It's awful. I agree with you. So my comment is this, and it's similar to my answer to your question, is let's make use of it while we can. And men in the room, stand up, talk about it. Be part of it. Come on.
But, so yes, but to your surroundings, but don't, so I really think we should not be the protagonist of this.
No,
I really think it should be a woman there talking about this and being the protagonist. So the talk is about lack of leadership in women.
I tell you what, yeah,
bring a woman here and make it leader.
Yeah, I tell you what I prefer. That would be great, but I tell you what I prefer, that we celebrate our female scientists properly. Is that we create an environment where men and women do achieve, and that when women become great scientists, they're given the prizes and the medals and the awards and the grants that they currently miss. That's a far better result. And if I do gender equality work, fine. Fine. Thank you for your question, though. It's a really good one. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Paul. Paul is going to be around here for a while, so if you have more questions, feel free to approach us later on. Thank you very much for this interesting discussion. Of course, it's just a start, a beginning, this discussion, and hopefully we'll be able to continue today and in the following days.